Hey, string players! Today we're going to be looking at page 6 in your lesson book. And we're going to start by looking at that yellow box on the top of the page that has the review information. You know, I always like to start in that box. Sometimes it's new information. Since we're still in the review pages, some stuff is a review and some of it we may not have had a chance to get to last year. So it's kind of a mix of both for us right now. So the first thing we're going to look at is the new key signature that we're working on this page, and we're in the key of C major. Remember, a key signature tells us which notes to play. It might say that for this whole piece, all of your Fs are sharp, or all of your Fs and Cs are sharp. That's the key we're most used to playing in, is the key of D major, where you have F sharps and C sharps. Now, if you look at this key signature in the yellow box that says the key of C, you might think, hang on a second, they forgot to write the key signature. I don't see any sharps and I don't see any flats. But they actually wrote it correctly. The key of C major is the weird one, because if the key of C major, when you see it, you actually don't see anything. There are no sharps and no flats. So back here, I've written the big idea of this, the key of C major, no sharps, no flats, and everything is natural. Everything is natural. So when you think about some of the notes you know that are followed by the word sharp or the word flat, you should also be able to think of how to play those notes natural, not sharp or flat. The best example that I'll give you right now, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, F sharp. That was the first type of F that you learned how to play on the D string, right? If you're a violin, or viola, you went D, E, F sharp. You had a nice space between your first and second fingers. If you were a cello, you went D, E, one finger, F sharp with three fingers, right? Now, not now, but last year we learned how to play an F natural. And to do that, cello was the easiest. For cello, you just had to do two fingers. But for violins and violas, we took that space and we moved our second finger up to being next to our first finger, and that made the note F natural. So when we're playing within this key of C major, we need to make sure all of the notes we play are natural notes. And again, we'll talk about that more as we get into some of these exercises that are in the key of C major. So that's a key signature. Now we're going to review a time signature, and that time signature is 2/4. This shouldn't be new to most of us because we actually played an orchestra piece in 2/4 last year. But a reminder that 2/4 means that there's two beats per measure. So we often play in 4/4. That's called common time because it's the most common time signature. 2/4 just means that you take your measure of 4/4 and break it into two measures. So there's two beats per measure. It looks the same, it looks similar, and you read it the same way. It's just that there's two beats in a measure instead of four. And if you take a look at number 21 on page 6, you'll see that that is written in 2/4. So we'll get a chance to practice that in a moment as well. And last but not least, we have a new bow stroke called staccato. Again, this might be new to some of you and review for others. Staccato is a bow stroke that basically means you're making your sound short, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But it's written with a dot. So anytime you see a dot under the note, that means to play it staccato. Okay. There are times when there's a dot next to the note, and that has to do with how long you play the note. It actually makes the note longer to put a dot next to it. But a dot underneath means we actually shorten our note a little bit. And there's 3 S's. I forgot to write one of them up here, so I'll write it while I tell you. There's 3 S's that I like to think of when it comes to staccato. The first is short. The note's going to be short. The second is stop. You're going to stop your bow. And the third is space. So you're going to be creating space in between the notes. Let me show you what I mean by that. If I'm going to play 4 Ds like this, and the music says that those 4 Ds are staccato, I'm going to think I want to make those notes shorter. So in order to do that, I need to stop my bow, and that's going to create space in between the notes. And it will look and sound like this. So I'm actually stopping my bow in between each note. Right? right? Typically, we don't do that. Normally, we play détaché or legato. Those are some other words you might hear for smooth and connected. But when it's written as staccato, we're thinking of the three S's: short, space, short, stop, and space. Okay? So now we're ready to look at our music for the key of C major, number 18. This is a C major scale. Some of you, again, may have done this before, others may not have. And violas and cellos, this is a different C major scale than what you learned as a fourth grader. As a fourth grader, you learned it starting on open C. Now we're starting with C on the G string. Okay, and if we take a look at this, everyone takes a look. The first note we play is C. It's either 3 on G if you're a violin or viola, excuse me, or 4 on G if you're a cello. Okay, so we know that note, C. The next note is open D. That's easy. E, one finger on D. That's for everybody. And then the next note, we've hit our first natural note, F. Well, all of the other notes were natural, but the first note that we normally play as sharp that we now have to play as natural. So we've hit our F natural. So remember, if you're a violin or a viola, instead of playing with a space, you're going to back your second finger up so it's touching your first finger. Cellos, we're going to do 2 fingers instead of 3. Okay? We're going to keep going here. Then we have G, A, open A, B, and the last note of the scale, C, of course, has to be C natural. So it's the same thing on the A string. You're backing that second finger up so it's next to your first finger. Or if you're a cello, you're just playing 2 fingers, right? We have to be careful. We don't want to end our C scale on a C sharp, right? That just doesn't even go with the name of the scale. We have the C. You probably noticed this is the same rhythm that we played our G scale in last week, 2 weeks ago. Da, 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 dun, dun, dun. Short, 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 long, long. So that's what we're looking for. I'm going to go ahead and play number 18. You can play along with me. If something doesn't sound right, my guess is that it probably is either your F natural or your C natural. So stop and check those and make sure you're playing those notes properly. So here's number 18. I'm setting my fingers down for that C. Okay. Right in the middle of the bow for this. Ready? And here we go. F natural. C natural. And then back down. F natural. Awesome. So a different type of scale. We are not used to starting scales with having fingers down. Normally the scales we've played start on open strings. Now we're starting to learn some of those scales where you start on first or second or third finger, which is really exciting. So now we're going to take a look at number 19, the C major arpeggio. We talked about this last time. It's a pattern where you play the first, third, fifth, and eighth note of the scale. So in this case, it's C, E, G, and high C, C natural, right? That's going to be the toughest note to remember is the last one, the highest one. That's C natural, like how we played it in the scale. So I'm going to go ahead and play this. And again, go ahead and play along with me. So here we go. Ready, and. Very nice. Moving on here. So now we have the C major duet. Again, practicing in this key signature, making sure that we remember all of those natural notes. Again, the F and the C are the ones that are weird. Every time when we play D, we automatically play D natural. And there is such a thing as D sharp and D flat. We just haven't learned those yet. But so we are playing all natural notes, but the ones that seem weird to us are the F natural and the C natural. Okay. This is just a one-liner, but it's a duet. So let's take a look at the bottom line first. I think that's the easiest of the two, the B line. Then we'll go to the A line. Okay, so let's just play right through this B line. I think we can handle it. They are long notes, so I should see when we get to our lesson that you're using your whole bow for each of these half notes. You can definitely use your whole bow for every half note. So 1, 2, here we go. F natural. Very nice. Okay, now if we look at the A line, there are some notes that are skips as we're playing. So it's not like the scale anymore, right? You might look at each measure. We might play each measure just to make sure we have it down. The first one is C, C, E, E, D, D. Let's try that. Ready? And here we go. Good. Then D, D, F, F, E, E. Here it is. And again, make sure it doesn't sound like this. When I just played that, I put an F sharp in. We don't want F sharps. We want F naturals. Okay, there's another F natural in the third measure. It starts on an E, but there is an F natural in there. It sounds like this. And then the fourth measure sounds like this. And making sure we end on C natural again. Let's try that A line together. If you can't quite get it this fast, this would be a good time to pause and work through it. And again, I don't expect you to have it down today. That's why you have some time before your lesson to work on it, and we'll work on it in the lesson as well. So here's that A line, setting down my fingers for C. Ready, and here we go. Awesome. Very good. And finally, the last one on the page, number 21, Buffalo Gals. This is a fiddle tune, and it's a pretty neat one. So let's take a look at it. So I'm looking through this page. I see that we have half notes, 2 beat notes. We have quarter notes, 1 beat notes, and eighth notes, half a beat notes, right? Those are the fast ones, eighth notes. I also see at the end, we'll have an opportunity to practice the staccato bowing, the third measure from the end. And I see some dynamics in there too that we can work on as well. So let's work on this 4 measures at a time. So this is what measures 1, 2, 3, and 4 should sound like. And if you feel like you want to play it with me, you can. If you want to listen, that's okay too. So here's what it sounds like. Okay, you can look for where are the shorter notes, the eighth notes. It changes. They're not always the first one in the measure, right? It's short, short, long, long, short, short, long, short, short, long. That half note is extra long. Why don't you try it with me? I'll play it a little bit slower this time, and then I'll do it fast the second time. Ready? Here we go. A little faster. Ready? And here we go. Good. The next 4 measures sound like this, and there is an F natural in here to watch out for. Set down your fingers for that note G. We're starting on the 5th measure. Let's hear what that sounds like. Ready? Here we go. Awesome. Let's put this whole line together because I want to make sure we also can showcase our dynamics. So the first 4 measures are forte or loud, and the second group of 4 measures are soft, piano. Okay, so from the top here. Ready, and here we go. Now soft. Awesome. Taking a look at the next line. The first 4 measures of the second line should look very similar to the top line. This is what it sounds like. only difference is instead of the E half note, we now have E, F natural. Okay, so let's play that together. Ready, here we go. And the ending, and watch for the staccato bowing here. It sounds like this. So did you see I stopped my bow in between those notes? They were short notes with a stopped bow and a space between the notes. That's exactly what we want with staccato. Try the last 4 measures with me. Ready, here we go. Awesome. So looking through this in terms of this combines everything that was in that yellow box on the top of the page. We have the 2/4 time signature, we have the key of C major, and we have the staccato note. So this is really a great piece to go over. There are not C naturals in here because we don't, well, there are C when we play C on the G string, but we don't have to worry about the low 2 or the second finger on the A string. We never get that high. In this piece, so we don't have to worry about that. But we do have lots of F naturals. So if you're feeling like you're forgetting those and you'd like to take a pencil in your lesson book, use a pencil, not a pen, please, and mark those notes. So if you're a cello, I just write 2. But if you're a violin or a viola, I always put a down arrow over the note to remind me that it's a low 2. That's just my reminder to myself. You could also draw a natural symbol, which looks like this. It's an upright L and then an upside down L. So you could do that as well, whatever is going to make it easier for you to remember. And so we're going to finish here by playing number 21 all the way through, incorporating all of those things that we've talked about from that yellow box. I'm going to set my fingers down. Ready, and here we go. Soft. Now loud. Awesome. All right, so that is, let me just make sure. I think that was the last one. Yes, that was everything on page 6. So you should be able to play in the key of C major, play in the time signature of 2/4, and demonstrate those staccato notes for our lesson. If you have any questions, please let me know, but I'm looking forward to playing through these with you when we meet for our lesson.